All right, where to begin? Where to begin? Well, I'm probably gonna make some people upset in this video, and you know what? I'm prepared for it. I'm prepared for the comments and the emails and everything that goes along with it because it's something that we need to talk about. I've been reading about it all week long in posts and comments and everything else, and this is the most divided I've really seen the fishing community, well, since I've been a fisherman. And so what's the big news? Well, trout regulations are changing, and they are changing soon. That is a fact. It is happening. And I've been reading people on both sides of this argument, and we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about what the new regulations are, what they're changing from, what they're changing to. We're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about what you can expect in the future, and then I'm going to give you my opinion on all of it. Stay tuned. All right, before we get started, I do need to say that a lot of what I say in this video is it's an opinion. It's my opinion. That's exactly what it is. But the one thing that is not my opinion and is truly fact is the new regulations. It is happening. It is a fact. Currently, we can catch 5 trout per day, 15 to 25 inch size limit. That is being reduced to 3 trout per day with a 15 to 20 inch size limit. Now, I think that the size limit actually is the more important part of this equation, and everybody seems to be focused on the amount. Now, what about those trophy trout, those bigger trout that, you know, everyone wants to get mounted and weighed and all of that, those trout that are over 30 inches? Well, there is talks about adding a tag system very similar to what we have for redfish that are over 28 inches. Now, I assume with the trout, you know, because that golden number really is that 30-inch trout, everybody's trying to catch that 30, that's 10 pounds. I assume that that tag will be for 30-inch trout or above. I don't know. I don't know about all of that. Now, when are all these regulations going into place? Well, they are going to start, from what I hear, mid-March. I don't have an exact date. If I find one, I will edit the video and put a date up here somewhere so you guys know exactly when this starts. But all of that is coming soon. I would imagine within the next 2 months. It is happening. So now, why did these fish regulations get changed? Why are we lowering and reducing the amount and the size? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Some of them are based on facts, some of them are science, and some of them are my opinion, but we're going to talk about it. The first part of that equation, and what probably kicked off this entire discussion debate about fish regulations, is the freeze of 2021. Down here on the Texas coast, we had a freeze that lasted a few days. A lot of us that fish regularly were very, very worried about the health of our fish and the population, and you know, we had a huge fish kill. That's what they call it. And it absolutely happened. Our worst nightmares came true. We lost hundreds of thousands, if not more, fish all along the Texas coast. There are tons and tons of videos of that and photos, and a lot of us that went right back out to the water right after the freeze to check on all of that. I mean, it was disgusting to see how many fish had actually been killed. Now, that's really what kicked this off, and shortly after that, they made a regulation on the lower coast where they already reduced the limits and size on the lower coast for a certain amount of time. Now that has ended. However, we are still seeing a decline in population. For anybody that fishes regularly knows that's true. I know that it is harder and harder every year to catch good fish. I've been fishing a long time. A lot of the guys that I know and fish with, they've been fishing longer than I have. And some of these guys that have been fishing 30 plus years on the Texas coast, they see it a lot more than people that have just started fishing or people that, you know, don't fish as often as we do. Now, I will argue that point with anyone because I see it. I've seen it even just over the last few years, the decline in population. It used to be very easy to go out and catch a full limit of trout and you know, get a bunch of good redfish, but the population has declined. It is not where it used to be. And so that's what's really kicked off this regulation. Now, the second part of that equation is the absolute increase in fishing population, the amount of fishermen that are on the water. Anybody that's been fishing for years knows, and they see it. I see it. The amount of people that are fishing now compared to 5-6 years ago, I mean, it's probably quadrupled. There are places that I used to go years ago, either in my kayak or in a boat, that I could go out all day and only see 1, maybe 2 other people, if I saw any other people at all. Now, if I go to those exact same places, I have to wait to launch my boat because there's so many people. There's 15, 20, 30 people in a lot of those spots. And it doesn't matter where I go, it's the entire coast. Now, I have an opinion of why that happened, and it has nothing to do with fishing, but a lot to do with COVID. During that time, if you guys remember, everything was shut down. Bars, restaurants, movie theaters, clubs, you name it, everything was shut down. But the one thing that they couldn't shut down was outside, the outdoors, and a lot of people had to find new ways to entertain themselves, new, joys in their life, and they found fishing and they found the outdoors, whether it be hunting or hiking or biking or whatever it was. And a lot of people found fishing. They found that love and that joy that all of us have for fishing, and they found it during that time. And because of that, they found a new lifestyle, and that lifestyle has continued until this day. For a lot of these new fishermen that started 2 and 3 years ago, they're still fishing. And so that huge increase in population has affected our fish, because there are a lot more fishermen pulling more fish out of the water constantly. And so when you increase the amount of fishermen and decrease the amount of fish, it's just an equation that is bound to reduce the amount of fish. Now, that's why we're here. That's why the regulations are changing, and we need to do something about it. All right, so what can we expect for the future? Now, I've already talked about the potential for a tag system for, oversized fish, some of those larger ones. I'm really hoping that they stick to that 30-inch. I haven't heard whether that's the case or not, or if they're going to make it lower, like 28. I don't know. That is something that we can expect. Now, when it comes to the fish population, which I think is what everybody really cares about, Texas Parks and Wildlife put out a statement that over the course of a fish's lifespan, 7 years is what they're saying. In 7 years, we should see, based on these new regulations, an increase of 27% on the fish population. Now, that is huge. If that extends even longer, then it's going to be more and more fish. And what that does is that allows us to have a better fishery here on the Texas coast. We'll be able to catch more fish. Fishing will be easier for a lot of people, and it will be much better for future generations, which is what I care about. I care about my kids and grandkids and their kids being able to fish and enjoy the fishing like I do now. That's what I want in the future, and that's really what a lot of us can expect. I'm hoping that this really does help the population, and it's something that everyone's going to be keeping their eye on, and probably doing all kinds of testing and really try to figure out what's going on with the population in the future. Now, moving forward, there is something that I am worried about, and that is what this regulation is going to do for other species of fish. I think that a lot of people that were catching their 5 trout and that was good enough for them, and now it's not enough. I think those people are going to start focusing on other fish, specifically redfish, and that worries me a lot as a redfish tournament angler. And I've seen the redfish population decline as well. I'm worried about all of these people now catching and taking redfish, and that that is worrisome. It bothers me a little bit, and I think that if we're looking at this in the long run, I could absolutely see in a few years, when we start looking at the redfish population declining because of this, that they're going to start regulating that more as well. Now, again, I don't keep fish, especially redfish. I don't keep them, but I think that there will be a lot of people that do. So that bothers me. It worries me for the future. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens, but there are a lot of other fish that people can go catch, and I hope that that's, the route they go. I hope they go and start catching sheephead and, black drum and other species, but I really think that the redfish population is going to be impacted the most by this. Now, lastly, I want to give you my opinion on the matter on a few of the topics about these regulations and what I think. Now, first, I am never a fan of government regulation of anything. I don't think that the government should tell you that you have to wear a seatbelt, for instance. If you don't want to wear a seatbelt and you get in a car crash and you die, that's on you. I don't think that they should regulate that or fine you when you don't do it. I think that's ridiculous. However, I'm willing to make an exception for government regulation on this topic, and I'll tell you why. Because if you don't wear a seatbelt, again, that affects you and only you. However, we as a fishing community, if we go out and we catch all these fish and we're keeping all of these fish over and over again, it doesn't affect just me and it doesn't affect just you. It affects future generations, our kids and grandkids and their kids and all of the future generations in, from that point on. And that is a big problem for me. I want future generations to be able to enjoy the fishing that I've enjoyed for many, many years. And I hope that that continues furthermore. And we as a fishing community, as a populace, have really shown that we cannot handle that. We cannot regulate ourselves. I mean, I see it all the time. People talking about how they want to, they'll keep every fish they can, and all of these stringer photos and table photos of them cleaning tons and tons of fish. Now, I personally am someone who doesn't keep fish. For many years, I have decided, as I saw the fish population decline, keeping fish is not for me. It's very, very rare for me to keep fish. I do every once in a while, but I mean, in the last 4 to 5 years, I could probably count on one hand each year how many fish I keep. Now, that is a personal decision, and a lot of people have jumped on board with that. I followed somebody else's advice when it came to that, and I've seen that catch and release population grow and grow. There's a lot of guides out that are now doing catch and release only, and that has really helped. However, as a population, as a fishing community, that is not the norm. There are still a ton of people that think that they need to keep every single fish that they catch, and that just lowers the population over and over and over again, and it's just too much. So I personally am okay with this regulation. I like it. In fact, I hope that this increases the fish population. Now, I get it. There are a lot of people that are very upset that think that, this is their right and that they should be able to keep whatever they want. But it's a resource, and we need to regulate the resource. And I've seen tons of comments on all sides of this. People are like, well, that's not enough to feed my family. Well, I'll tell you this: if fishing is how you're feeding your family, that is the most expensive way possible to feed a family. Buying boats and rods and lures and bait and whatever else you use, it's unrealistic to think that that is the way that you feed your family when you can go down to the grocery store and spend, a tenth of that, a hundredth of that, and get a bag of fish, for a couple bucks. That is just an invalid argument for me. I don't even like that comparison. Secondly, let's talk about why we all fish. If you are fishing solely for keeping those fish and eating those fish, well, you're missing the point. The enjoyment, the fun of fishing is actually going out there, finding fish, catching them, reeling them in. All of that is the part that we all enjoy. I love fishing. I love the excitement of going out and finding them and all of that, and reeling them in and chasing them down and trying to constantly get bigger fish. If your sole purpose is to just fill an ice box, you're really missing the point. Now, next, let's talk about guides, and I think this is where this video is going to start to upset people. I talked briefly before about the amount of new fishermen and that population growing. Well, the same thing has happened with guides. I think this year there's over 1,400 new guides along the Texas coast. I think there's more guides within the last 2 or 3 years that have become guides than probably the last 10. And all of those guides are running trips and they're catching fish, and a lot of those people are keeping fish, and they're running multiple people a day, and it's just a lot. Now, am I saying that we need to reduce the amount of guides? No, I'm not saying that you need to quit guiding because of our fish population, but I mean, it would help if there were less. However, I'm not going to tell anyone to change the way that they make a living for their family based on this. However, there are a lot of guides, again, that do catch and release, and I think it would be great. Now, with this regulation changing from 5 to 3, there's a lot of guides that have been talking about how this could affect their business, and there's not a lot of people that are going to want to book trips. I don't think that a 2 fish change is really going to change that. People, again, want to go out for the experience and the fun and the enjoyment of catching fish. Those people that can take a few fish home with them, great. If there's multiple people on the boat, which normally there are, well, you're taking 3, 6, 9, 12 fish, depending on how many people are on the boat. Well, I mean, that's quite a bit to feed a family, and you know, have a meal for the day. Now, moving on to something that is related, that is really going to make people mad, let's talk about croaker. Well, I personally think that croaker needs to be changed to a game fish, and I know a lot of people are going to lose their mind over that comment. I've seen that mentioned before, and people definitely love to debate that. Croaker has become a crutch for fishing for a lot of people. People rely on croaker, and let's face it, it is easier to catch some of those big trout on croaker, which is why a lot of guides use that. So I think that making croaker a game fish would absolutely help for a few reasons. One, we would start to see bigger croaker. It would absolutely increase the croaker population, which would help the overall fishery in general. Secondly, a lot of people that rely on that croaker would be forced to use something else. And so there are a lot of guides that strictly guide during the summers, during those croaker seasons, because it's easy. And maybe it's that they are not as proficient with using artificial or other baits, and I get it because it's a lot easier. But I think that that would actually lower the amount of guides that are running every year. I think that would help that population in general. It would help the amount of croaker, and likewise it will help the amount of trout, because less people can catch, you know, good trout on artificial. It's a lot harder for many people. It would, you know, again, help a lot of fishermen get better because they're forced to use something that, you know, takes a little bit more skill and a little bit more experience and practice. And so I think all the way around, it is very helpful. I think in the long run, we're going to see a decline in the amount of guides. We're going to see an increase in croaker. We're going to see an increase in trout and redfish, all of that because of one fish. And, you know, I'm sure everybody's going to have their opinion on that, and I could be, you know, I could be answering a lot of emails and comments, but that's truly what I believe. I think that would help this population even more if we made croaker a game fish. Now, while I could continue to give you my opinions on this this topic, and all, I could literally talk for hours about this. I'm not going to. I'm going to end it here. I really do appreciate you watching. I would love to hear all of your opinions and comments. So if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe, comment below. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.